All right, we are going to take some time to get to know the different features of the skull. We're kind of picking and choosing some. There are many more than the ones we're going to ask you to learn, but here's some of them, the ones you're expected to know. So to start off, we're going to flip the skull upside down, and I want to draw your attention to these two bumpy knobs right here. These are called the occipital condyles. They're called the occipital condyles because they're part of the occipital bone, and condyle is the term for a rounded knob. These are the knobs that attach to the first vertebra called the atlas, and they just kind of attach to that vertebrae right there. So occipital condyles. Next, we have this giant hole. A foramen is a hole. This is a big hole, so we call it foramen magnum, big hole. And as you probably could guess, that hole is there so that the spinal cord can pass through it. The next two structures are called processes. Processes are projections where muscles attach. The first one is this structure right here called the styloid process. And I think of it like a stylus. It's kind of long and straight like a stylus. The muscles involved in swallowing and speaking actually are attached to this. Then we also have this little bump right here called the mastoid process. There's a muscle called the sternocleidomastoid that attaches to this, and that's involved in turning your head. You can actually feel that on the back of your skull. If you look at me, basically back here, you can kind of feel a little bumpy area back there. That is your mastoid process. The next structure is called the mandibular fossa. It has to do with the mandible, and to see it you have to remove the jaw. So right here where that cartilage is, there's this shallow groove where the mandible attaches. That shallow groove right there is called the mandibular fossa. The next structure is the external auditory meatus, and think auditory ear. That's basically this tunnel right there, the external auditory meatus, and that's where the ear goes. The final two structures are called the sinuses, and you have a sinus. The frontal sinus is kind of right in here, and the sphenoidal sinuses are right above here. And you can't really see them here, but to give you a sense of what a sinus is, it's basically a hollowed air space. So I have this section of a skull. This is the eyeball, and this is the forehead. And if we peel this back, you can see there's this little air space in there. That's the sinus. And there's one, again, in the frontal bone right here, if you look at this structure, and then right below the eyes. And if you've ever gotten a sinus infection, that basically means these become filled with mucus and pus and infected yummy goodness. And you oftentimes feel it right here in your forehead and right here below your eyes.